over. Time to close the doors. That is the focus of a very important news-breaking opening monologue. All right, huge breaking news tonight. Now, we've been telling you it's coming. It is now here. Stunning reporting tonight from Sarah Carter that we are confirming with our sources. Classified DOJ documents that members of Congress are now reviewing. It shows widespread and extensive FISA abuses against the Trump campaign, and we have names. Now, here's how it all went down. At the last minute, the House, they finally got, literally within an hour, their subpoena request approved by the DOJ. Members of Congress were able to get their hands on all these classified documents. Now, at the last minute, Rod Rosenstein tried to stop it by going into Paul Ryan's office. Paul Ryan would have none of it. Now, it is more disturbing than we ever thought. And at this hour, our sources are telling us that the abusive power is far bigger than Watergate. Remember, Watergate was a third-rate break-in. What we're talking about tonight is the systematic abuse of power, the weaponizing of those powerful tools of intelligence, and the shredding of our Fourth Amendment constitutional rights that protect all of us against unlawful search and seizure. It is complicated, but it's also simple. We're going to break it all down for you in a way I hope that's easy to understand. Now, go back to the Watergate comparison for a minute. You got a group of people who tried to cover up the lead up to an election. They broke in, they stole things they shouldn't have, stole from the opposition. What we're talking about tonight is an abuse of the powerful tools of intelligence that we use to spy on people, except those tools were used against an opposition candidate and a president-elect and his entire team. And it was done not only under false pretenses, but with the help of Hillary Clinton. She bought and paid for the dossier that they filled with Russian lies, propaganda, salacious details that were never true. And that dossier was corroborated, we now know, by a long-time Clinton ally and sycophant. Now, here are the people that we're going to learn an awful lot about in the next couple of weeks. Pay very close attention. They are the highest ranks of the Department of Justice and your FBI. And tonight we can confirm that the Trump-hating, Clinton-loving FBI agent Peter Strzok and his mistress, FBI lawyer Lisa Page, they are at the nexus of everything, and there's so much more information coming. Now, at the end of all of this, we're going to learn an awful lot, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that the special counsel Robert Mueller and his band of Democratic witch hunters never should have been appointed, and they need to be disbanded immediately. Now, here's why Strzok and Page are connected to everything. What we're learning tonight is that these two Trump-hating individuals, they're at the heart and soul and center of it all. Remember, we still have 9,600 texts of theirs between each other that we haven't seen yet. And we're expecting that some of them will be released tomorrow. And everything that we've learned so far about Strzok and Page is now beginning to make sense. Let me explain. They called Trump an idiot, a lonesome human, and said, F Trump. And by the way, the meaning behind this particular text message is now, tonight, coming into clear focus. Remember Strzok? He wrote his mistress, Page, I want to believe the path that you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. Now, we believe here at Fox that Andy, mentioned in that text, is the FBI Deputy Director, Andrew McCabe. And this text message was sent on August the 15th of 2016. This is a very critical time frame, and here's why. Around the exact same time that Strzok and Page are talking about their insurance policy, well, the Obama administration officials are going to the FISA court to get a warrant on Carter Page. Stay with me. They're using Carter Page as a pretext to really spy on the Trump campaign. And now it is transparent to all of us what Strzok was saying to Page when they spoke about the insurance policy with Andy, we believe Andrew McCabe, in that text message, needing that insurance policy. Now, everyone seems to forget Lisa Page is a key legal counselor for McCabe. See how it all ties together? And listen, when they're sending the text messages about an insurance policy, they're also going to the FISA court. Now, sources are telling us tonight that the first time they tried to get the FISA warrant against Carter Page was in the summer. It was denied. Then the second time they tried to get it in the early fall, they used the phony Clinton bought and paid for dossier. And this time they were successful for one reason. The fake news dossier put the request over the top. It was the final nail in the coffin to get the FISA warrant out there against Trump. Now, you can forget about the reporting about George Papadopoulos running his mouth at a nightclub to an Australian diplomat. Any lawyer is going to tell you that that four-way hearsay, it's never going to hold up in court. Hearsay doesn't hold up in court. So back to Carter Page and the FISA warrant on him. There's a very important variety of things happening here. At that point, the Obama administration, they should have known that the dossier was totally false, full of salacious Russian lies. It should have been suspect on its face value. Now, Fusion GPS, they never even verified what was in that dossier, never tried, because they trusted Christopher Steele, who they hired, who put it all together. The same Christopher Steele would reportedly, pay Russians to get information. And by his very nature, think about it, he was a former MI6 guy. He was highly skilled in deception. So tonight, sources who are familiar with this classified information, only Congress can see it right now, they're telling me that it's a case of show me the man and I'll show you the crime. All right, now that you're up to speed on that part, we have a lot of questions for key people involved. Now, we need to know what all of these top Obama administration officials knew and when they found out, and exactly how they were involved in spying on an opposition campaign and an incoming president. Now, our questions don't end there. What did Hillary Clinton know? Her campaign know? The DNC that she controlled know? We know they paid Fusion GPS, $12 billion plus to put this phony dossier together. Did she know this was happening, and when did she know it? What did President Obama know? Was he briefed about the dossier before the election? Now, we believe he was. To sum it all up, Clinton fixed the primary, remember, against Bernie Sanders. Then Peter Strzok and James Comey, well, they fixed the investigation into her emails by exonerating her before even investigating that particular case. That allowed Clinton to stay in the race and at the same time Strzok, his mistress, Lisa Page, Deputy FBI Director McCabe, seemed to be on a mission, an insurance policy mission, to destroy Trump. The insurance policy is in case, God forbid, he wins. We don't think it's going to happen. And it's clear they were using the powerful tools of intelligence and a FISA warrant to have a backup plan in case Hillary lost. This is far worse than Watergate. This is an abuse of surveillance and intelligence to win an election, a massive abuse of power. And it was all done by just a few people who think and thought they knew better than you about who should be the president of the United States. And this is only the tip of the spear. It is the biggest national scandal by far in our lifetime. Joining us now with more information, Congressman Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz and Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. Sarah, all right, let me ask all three of you, yes or no, am I over the target? Jim Jordan.
Sean, what I read today in that classified briefing room is as bad as I thought it was, and every single American citizen should have the ability to see that information to know exactly what our FBI was up to.
Will it shock the conscience of the American people?
Sean, it shocked me. I compared it to, I remember the day I walked in 2 years ago on the Benghazi committee, walked in and saw the immunity agreements that were given to people in the Clinton investigation. I didn't know who they'd given them to. I opened up that folder and I looked down when the Justice Department official slid that folder over to me on that table and looked down and see they gave Cheryl Mills immunity during the Clinton investigation. Clinton's chief of staff, her lawyer. Today, when I read the material, I had that same shock feeling. I was like, wait a minute, this actually happened from our Justice Department and this FBI. That's how serious this is. That's why we're calling on every bit of that information we got to see today to be made public for you to see, for journalists to see, most importantly, for the American people to see.
Matt Gaetz, you saw these materials today. You agreeing with Jim Jordan? Because it sounds like a few people decided they wanted to fix, not only they fixed it so Hillary wouldn't get in trouble on the email server scandal. We know felonies were committed. She fixed the primary, rigged the primary. Sounds like they're fixing and rigging here a general election or to overturn an election. And, you know, I mean, whatever word you want to describe that. Fixing, well, rigging, a coup, I don't know.
Yeah, you are describing the very elements of a palace coup. And after Jim and Mark Meadows and many others of us reviewed the intelligence information today, it is abundantly clear that the entire Mueller investigation is a lie built on a foundation of corruption. And what is so important is that we get this information into the public square. Yep. The best disinfectant for this corruption is going to be sunshine, and that's why Jim Jordan and I have joined many other members of Congress in calling for this information to be released for the review of all of the American people. You know, Sean, when you've been on this show each and every night making claims about the bias and the corruption and the deep state, people have accused you and your guests of being tinfoil hat folks, lone voices in the wilderness. This critical intelligence information will vindicate the claims that have been made by so many, and it is absolutely essential that we share it with all Americans. That's what we're fighting for in the Congress.
Is it a fair statement that what we've been, the onion we've been unpeeling, we've been over the target the whole time, Congressman Gates?
Well, Sean, we can't get into the specific information, but I can tell you I am as certain as ever that the claims we have been making are accurate claims, that there is intelligence information that backs it up, and that there has been a real attempt to undermine this president, and it has come from the scariest of places. Some of the very people we've been talking about will be exposed, and the key reason that all Americans need to see this memo is that it names names. It says who was involved with who, how different actors and characters we've heard about interacted with one another, and that is the type of information that we need all Americans to see immediately.
Sarah Carter, you have been all over this all day. What can you tell us about your reporting?
Well, I can certainly say that my reporting coincides with what Congressman Gates and Congressman Jordan are saying, and I think it's far worse than what I believed could have happened. And from what I've been told, senior government officials may be removed from office, may be fired. I don't know how far this will go. I also want a lot of those questions answered. Sean, who was in relationship to who when it came to these FISA warrants? How did they operate with one another? What were these really egregious actions that took place that only this memorandum and report can tell us? And I've been watching my Twitter feed, and I've been watching Twitter all day, and I'm seeing hashtag release the documents, hashtag release the documents everywhere. And the American public deserves to know the truth here. It is absolutely essential that we understand what was happening. And this was a duly elected president of the United States of America. And if people within our own government were trying to usurp that and change the trajectory, then the American people need to know.
All right. I agree with you on release the documents. The Wall Street Journal tonight in an editorial, they're demanding the same thing. Congressman Jordan, we deserve to see this. You agree with that? And how soon will we be able to get our eyes on these documents?
Great question, Sean. Here's the process. Chairman Nunes in the Intelligence Committee in the House, he can bring the committee back together. They can have a vote. If a majority of the committee votes to release these documents, the executive branch gets a certain amount of time to review them. If the executive branch gives the thumbs up, they go public. So this could happen real quick. Chairman Nunes is committed to getting this information to the public.
Not one Democrat wanted you to see it.
Well, no, they didn't. But I can, after you read it and you see, and if they're playing partisan politics, you can see why they didn't want us to see that, and you can see why they won't want the American people. But as Matt Gaetz said, as Sarah said, this is something that needs to be out. So this should never happen in a country as great as the United States of America. And we need every single American take a look at this and see what exactly their government did, their law enforcement division did. This is that kind of information, and it needs to be public as soon as possible.
Well, it sounds to me like a lot of people, Congressman Gates, need to be fired and investigated.
That's right. I think that this will not end just with firings. I believe there are people who will go to jail. I was very persuaded by the evidence, and it also became clear to me why Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham felt it so important to refer this matter for criminal prosecution. You don't get to try to undermine our country, undermine our elections, and then simply get fired. So I think there will be criminal implications here, and we have to underscore the point that you and Jim Jordan just made. Every single Democrat on the Intelligence Committee voted against even allowing other members of Congress to see this information. So you know they're going to fight against release to the American people. What are the Democrats so afraid of? Why don't they want the American people to know the truth about what was going on with the government, how that impacted the president, his transition, his campaign? And it just seems interesting to me that Democrats don't want us to know what the entire basis was in the first place for the Mueller probe. They want to drag this out through the midterm elections to try to embarrass this president and distract this Congress from the critical work we've got to do to save this great country. Let's release the documents.
Any details, do you conclude that Mueller, the whole issue of Trump-Russia collusion never should have come up? Does Mueller need to disband? And
absolutely. This was a lie built on corruption, built on a sham. The entire investigation is a fiction. It's a fallacy. And when the American people see how this began, when the American people see how different people interacted with one another, how organizations were infected and infiltrated and subjected to tremendous bias of individuals, and how that really played out, I think that every American will understand how absolutely ludicrous it is that we continue to allow the Mueller probe to go forward. It needs to end because the entire basis is a lie.
I know from my sources, Sarah, that they're saying this should result in the immediate firing of Lisa Page, of Peter Strzok, of Bruce Orr, also Andrew McCabe. I have some questions. Where does Rod Rosenstein stick in this equation, the one that appointed the special counsel? Did he, because we now know the dossier, the phony Clinton bought and paid for dossier, that was used for the Pfizer warrant. All of this leads to Mueller. That never should have happened because it was on opposition party propaganda. Then it was, what's with Comey? What's his involvement here? Where does he stand? Where does Mueller's investigation stand based on your reporting tonight?
Well, apparently when this document goes public, which I believe it will, I do believe it will be the unraveling of the Mueller probe. And I've been hearing that from other sources. And Sean, this was all about in the beginning. Remember, Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-Russia collusion. Now we know from what we've been hearing from the sources, from the congressional members who have seen this memo, that the collusion appears to be between certain members of the FBI and the DOJ and the Hillary Clinton campaign, and that the foundation of this was all based on lies. Not only do I want to know what Rosenstein, who was actually the Department of Justice, was withholding that information for a long period of time, and then finally gave it up to the House Intelligence Committee.
Did Rod Rosenstein sign off an extension of this Pfizer warrant? Do we know?
We don't know that yet. I have not had the privilege of seeing the actual classified document, of course. The congressional members have, but I do not know the answer to that yet. But I would like to know how Sidney Blumenthal plays into all of this, because I think that's going to be a very telling revelation when all of this comes out.
Can you give us any information, not giving us any details, Congressman Jordan, but about Comey, about Mueller? And I'm very interested in Rod Rosenstein and all of this.
No, I mean, look, there are certain people who can sign a FISA application. Only certain people can at the Justice Department do that. So we don't know who did. And after you go read this material,
well, it wasn't. We can eliminate this quickly. It wasn't Jeff Sessions. He was recused. So it's either Rosenstein or I believe one other person has the ability to.
There's only a handful of people at FBI and Justice who can sign off on one. Who did that? We don't know. What we do know is what we've been talking about. This should go public. And also, we know there is more to come because the investigation at the Intelligence Committee is not complete. Thank goodness for what Devin Nunes and his committee are doing and the push they did on the Justice Department to get these documents in the first place. But there is more information. Their investigation is not complete. When it's complete, then you're going to see the Judiciary Committee in the House do even more.
Comey had to know all of this was going on, didn't he?
Well, we can't talk about specifics, who knew what, and what we read today. What we read today, though, was a memo that compiled information that they've got, that they presented to members of Congress to look at. We called for members of Congress to be able to see this material just a few weeks ago. Today, we're calling on all Americans to be able to see this material so they can see what really took place.
Hashtag release the document. Release all the background associated with the document. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you,
Great
Sean.
reporting. All right, we'll have more on this breaking news. A jam-packed lineup tonight. Greg Jarrett, Larry Elder, they weigh in. Ed Henry, Jesse Waters, Jessica Tarloff, Tommy Lahren. Busy night. Stay with us.
kept in the army.
News of this rampant apparent FISA surveillance abuse and the targeting of then candidate and then President-elect Trump. Salem, nationally syndicated radio talk show host Larry Elder, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Okay, so Jim Jordan says, so alarming the American people have to see it. Wall Street Journal is now calling for that. It's troubling and shocking, Mark Meadows. Is this happening to America, or is this the KGB, Scott Perry? Rod Rosenstein and Bruce Orr should be fired, Matt Gaetz. You have your sources. What have you learned, and legally, where are we here?
A lot of people are in legal jeopardy right now for their jobs, for crimes that may have been committed. Even people like James Comey, who's already been fired, could still be impeached. What's the purpose of that? It would prevent him from ever holding any government position.
Don't we know that he has other issues, legal issues already?
Oh, he already does, because he's looking at theft. Obstruction of justice, if for political reasons, and it appears that this is the case, the FBI and Comey and others cleared Hillary Clinton, notwithstanding.
Wouldn't that be obstruction? Why wouldn't that be obstruction of justice?
It is obstruction of justice. It's exactly obstruction of justice.
But they also did it to let her stay in the race.
Right.
And then you have this whole other group of people that want an insurance policy in case he wins.
Right.
Okay, and then
these are
you have the surveillance of an opposition party candidate, and then a president-elect. Compare it to Watergate.
Well, it's a horrible abuse of power. It's an attempt to completely undermine electoral democracy and simultaneously obstruct justice, subverting justice. It is much bigger than Watergate.
Larry, put on your legal hat tonight. Your analysis of what you were learning tonight.
Well, if the memo measures up to one of the adjectives that some of these Republican House members are making, it's shocking. It's a bombshell. It suggests that the entire investigation was bogus from the start, that apparently this fake dossier that the Democrats paid for, they took that to the FISA court, and the FISA court executed warrants, which then allowed them to survey members of the Trump campaign. And you and I would not be having this conversation, and Trump would not have been spending 10 months of his administration fending this stuff off. Look, the Democrats still call Joe Wilson a racist for yelling out, "You lie," during the State of the Union speech. Actor Morgan Freeman implied that Mitch McConnell was a racist for saying, "I want to make him a one-term president." Can you imagine what they would be saying if Obama had spent 10 months investigating collusion, which nobody can define, which apparently people like Trey Gowdy has not yet been able to define yet? Can you imagine how this country would be? As I think I've made this point before on your show, Sean, the country would be on fire. So all the lefties, I would just want you to put on your thinking caps and imagine if the shoe were on the other foot, what you would be saying if this were about President Obama, given evidence this flimsy, this lame, this weak.
This is an island show right now, but I've got to believe that the media can't ignore this for much longer. You have a primary fixed. You have the email server. We know felonies were committed. It's incontrovertible, no ambiguity.
Right.
All right, so that's a fix-in by Comey and Strzok for Hillary. This dossier was designed to manipulate, lie to, and use Russian lies paid for by Hillary to rig that election.
And it was probably used in advance of the election so that it would be leaked and harm Donald Trump so that he wouldn't win. I mean, think about the consequences of that. The FBI and the Department of Justice trying to do something so underhanded, illegal, and nefarious, and abusing their power to try to alter the election and then thereafter continue on with a fictitious collusion investigation into Donald Trump to try to remove him from office. It's an unconscionable, inconceivable abuse of power.
The most important thing tonight, more than anything, is let's get this in the hands of the American people, Larry Elder.
Right.
They need to
and I think,
read this with the corroboration as well.
And, Sean, I think it is instructive that the vote to release this was down party lines. The Transparency Party, the Democrats, didn't want it released. Republicans did. One can only wonder why.
Yeah. I mean,
when this comes out, I think it will be enormous. You and I have been talking about this for a year, but this is the biggest development, I would say, we have seen in the course of a year.
This now, but you know, I couldn't understand for the longest time. Well, I know the media is corrupt. 90% of their coverage, we learn, is anti-Trump. But this is bigger than that. This is why I used the Watergate analogy. It's about a third-rate burglary and then a cover-up. And the burglary was designed to try and get information on an opposing presidential candidate so you can help win the election, right? And an election that was going to be won anyway.
Right.
In this case, we've got literally the powerful tools of intelligence weaponized and FISA warrants weaponized against one candidate, an opposition candidate, with lies from the other candidate that she paid for. And then it goes further to get the warrant, and then beyond that.
It's tragic. We look to top officials of the Department of Justice and the FBI to not only uphold the law, but to ensure democracy. It appears that those two agencies did everything to reverse that, and it's sad and tragic.
All right. Thank you both. A lot more on this busy news night tonight. Ed Henry has a live report. Well, are we headed towards a government shutdown, and why I don't think it matters? Jesse Waters, Jessica Tarlov, so much more. Stay with us.
They're called the Branch Davidians.
Tonight, the verdict is still out as to whether or not we're headed for a government shutdown. Plus, President Trump gave a big speech in Pennsylvania today. Here with all the details, Fox News chief national correspondent. This is such a slow news day. Ed Henry.
Sean, it never stops. We may be in for a long 24 hours as well before we know what's really happening with the budget. The House just voted moments ago to keep the government open with a provision that extends a popular children's health insurance program for 6 years. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy declaring that the House GOP has now done its job. So it's up to Senate Democrats to keep the government open, daring them to vote against this extension of health insurance for poor kids. But Senate Democrats are digging in, demanding that codifying DACA, basically giving legal status to the children of illegal immigrants, be included, or else they will vote no to keep the government open. In fact, the New York Times headline right now is Senate Democrats appear ready to block the measure. That would appear to put the blame for any potential shutdown with Democrats. But remember, Republicans have a majority in both the House and Senate, so they have a responsibility to try and get this through both chambers. That's why Majority Leader Mitch McConnell just said a few moments ago this should be an easy vote for both sides to support the House version that basically keeps the government open for about a month while they negotiate on a bigger deal. But that's easier said than done. They need 60 votes in the Senate. They may not get that. President Trump traveling earlier to Pennsylvania, out on the road charging that Democrats want the government to shut down in order to divert attention from an economy that he says is taking off.
We have created nearly 2.2 million jobs since the election. The unemployment rate is at now an 18-year low. The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits just hit a 45-year low. Something I'm really proud of, because I've been saying it. What do you have to lose? African American unemployment is at its lowest level ever recorded. Female unemployment is at the lowest level in 17 years. Hispanic American unemployment has hit its all-time lows.
Meanwhile, tonight, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein is trying to pin the blame for a potential shutdown on Republicans, flat out charging, in her words, people will die if the government shuts down. Feinstein earlier tonight told CNN, quote, people die, accidents happen, because it will be hard to predict what impact there will be when, quote, necessary functions cease. Now, as we've talked throughout the week, even a, quote, unquote, shutdown of the government does not mean a complete shutdown. Critical operations will continue. More interesting is that this dire prediction of people dying was actually made already by Nancy Pelosi before the tax cut votes. She said it would bring, quote, Armageddon. And as you heard the president note a moment ago there, just the opposite is happening with companies like Apple stepping up with major investments in jobs and wages after that tax cut passed, Sean.
All right, Ed, busy day, as you know. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Also today in Pennsylvania, the president reminded the country that his position on securing the southern border has not changed one bit. Take a look.
The wall has been something that I have been very consistent on always. And as you know, in fact, in an interview with you, I said the wall, you don't need a wall where you have a mountain. You don't need a wall where you have a wasteland. Everybody knows that. I've been saying that for 3 years, and everybody knows it. But a wall is not necessarily a wall where you have a mountain. So everybody understands it.
Here with Reaction, he is the co-host of The Five and the host of Water's World. It's his world. We live in it. You know, let me do. How do you do it?
You did it very well.
Yeah, but I busted up my knuckles, you know, hitting the heavy bag. All right, Jesse Waters and Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov is with us.
Can I get a hand signal?
You can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. No, she's got it all wrong.
I did it.
All right, this is Hannity's world now.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just for a few moments, just give us a little space. All right. We're really talking about political footballs using the Dreamers here. This is 1 month extending. And the Democrats either give us everything we want. We don't have control of the House or Senate, or we're going to shut down the government,
well,
which, by the way, I don't think is a big deal anyway. What?
Shouldn't they be able to get the votes on their own?
Okay, 51-49 is not exactly the big, comfortable margin that you would want.
Still a majority.
Oh, okay. So the point is they're using Dreamers as a political football because they can't get what they want.
Listen, if the Democrats want to run on the side of illegal aliens, that's fine. Let them run on it. We'll run on the side of American citizens. I think you guys don't want to die on that hill. It's not smart politics, and the hard men and working people of this country aren't going to buy it.
But the majority of Americans, Republicans and Democrats, independents as well, don't see these Dreamers as illegal aliens.
Yeah,
they see
everybody
these
wants to take care of the Dreamers, but not the expense of the U.S. military.
Well, I don't think that's the decision that we need to make here. That's how people have set it up as a juxtaposition. But that isn't what's going on here. Democrats don't want to continue punting this down the line.
Excuse me. They not only want the they not only want the children that are in their 20s and 30s, but also they want chain migration to continue. And they want their families to be able to come. That's what they were asking for.
Yeah, they want Uncle Leo and Aunt Nettie. And the deal is they don't want the wall. You know why? Because walls work.
No, that is not why they don't want the wall.
They don't want it, because you guys need new voters.
As General Kelly said last night with Bret Baier, when President Trump made that promise, he was uninformed. He has evolved on the issue. It used to be a solid wall.
Kelly was way out of line. No one's going to put a wall on the Rio Grande. That's where the alligators are going to be. All right? And that's going to take care of everything.
Where are
who said the alligator? The moat.
The moat. That was President Barack Obama.
Oh.
Who voted to fund the wall, by the way.
Well, that's the thing. 5 years ago, every major Democrat sounded like Donald Trump today. 5 years ago, they wanted to build the wall. Now it's racist and horrible, and we're killing the children. What is up? How do you get away with that hypocrisy? Not you, Schumer, and all the rest of them. Durbin.
Crying Chuck, you mean?
Don't call him that, and I don't like this Turbin Durbin or Dickie Durbin or whatever people are saying.
What are you calling him? That's not nice.
Yeah, come on, clean it up.
Excuse me. No, Mediaite, if you were watching,
right,
I did not say that.
What is this Mediaite plug every night on his program? Go ahead.
I take it back. Democrats, centrist Democrats, have been consistent on this. Hillary, Joe Biden, I say Dianne Feinstein have all spoken up for border security. It's part of the Gang of Eight bill.
They wanted 700 plus miles of wall.
I understand that.
5 years ago.
Things are different now, and when you say that they use the same language, they didn't. The President of the United States of America
People are crossing over the border and killing deputies in California. That's what's different.
There is a net outflow of immigrants from the southern border out of this country. You can't deny it. Those are the numbers.
So people aren't crossing right now because the Border Patrol catches 1,000 people crossing each day.
I'm saying the total numbers are a net outflow. The problem is not nearly as severe, and due to the president,
That's a lot of
pretty
people.
severe if you're talking 1,000 a day.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
I sat through a security briefing with Governor Rick Perry. I've been down on the border 12 times. Rio Grande, San Diego, drug warehouses, helicopter, horseback, all-terrain vehicles, boats, you name it, I was there, went with them. Also saw tunnels. I was in the tunnels that were dug. And the amount of drugs is insane. But more importantly, when I sat through the security briefing, 642,000 Texans were victims of crimes by illegal immigrants in a 7.5-year period of time. Now, wait a minute. Do you care about them?
Yeah, of course I do. And we talked about Kate Steinle and her murder.
Why don't we protect the American people first? And as President Trump said, we'll put a door inside the wall.
I know, the gold door.
I didn't say gold. I think platinum works.
He loves gold. It's a little expensive.
With a T on it.
No T. Naomi,
642,000.
Yeah, no.
Jessica, the point is that walls work. You don't want it because you guys need new voters. It's a dangerous situation down there on the border. Ask any rancher. They're bringing guns. They're bringing drugs. Some of them are good people.
Why are there Texas GOP representatives that say that they don't want the border wall, and it's not the most effective way to do it?
It's the one infrastructure project the Democrats don't want to spend money on.
It's a fence now. I am completely...
And we don't even have to pay for it, because who's going to pay for it?
Brilliant line.
Mexico.
No one
in
thinks
his
Mexico.
world, we're living in it. That was a good line.
We're in your world.
I don't have a world, you know.
It's 9 o'clock. This is your world.
That's true. 9 to 10. You got that, Waters? My world.
You can have it.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
I don't care if the government shuts down, by the way, because all essential employees work.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to get their checks. The military keeps working.
But you know Republicans
Hang on.
get the
and all those
no
people that get a free vacation will end up paying them back pay, like we always do. Good to see you. Tommy Lahren next.
It's the Phillips lady.
Anyone ever back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we're making our own product again, and we're opening up our factories again. At the center of America's resurgence are the massive tax cuts that I just signed into law. And it's also reform, but I usually just say tax cuts because that's what people, when they don't want to hear about the reform. Believe me, the reform is very important. We don't have to go into it. But the tax cuts are the most significant tax cut, most significant reform in American history, with tremendous tax relief for working families, for small businesses, for big businesses that produce jobs, for just about everybody. Tremendous numbers, and you're already seeing what's happening. Americans do anything, build anything, and create anything as long as we have pride in our country, confidence in our values, and respect for our great American flag. Right? Because America doesn't belong to the Washington power brokers. It belongs to you, and I think we've taught them that. Doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's nasty in Washington, but step by step by step, just keep going, right? Go and it is a nasty place. Woo! But we're getting it. Nobody thought we were going to have this kind of success so quickly.
America's back. We have numbers to prove it. That was the president's speech from earlier today in Pennsylvania. Joining us now with reaction, Fox News contributor Tommy Lahren. Let me just read a little bit, okay? 2.2 million new jobs since the election. We've got Chrysler moving from Mexico to Michigan. That is huge. And then, of course, we have Carrier and all these other companies. Then we got massive tax cuts, which is going to benefit 90+% of Americans. We got rid of all this regulation, 20 regulations gone for every new one. We have unemployment at an 18-year low, applications for unemployment at a 45-year low, black unemployment the lowest ever recorded, female unemployment the lowest in 17 years, Hispanic unemployment the lowest ever recorded. That's like a half a century on unemployment. The Dow at 26,000, nearly $8 trillion in new wealth to the economy, although I don't invest a whole lot in it. Apple returns to America with a massive $350 billion investment, and there's many other companies. How could the media totally ignore this? Tommy Lahren.
Well, because the Democrats and the liberal mainstream media, they're shaking in their boots right now, and it's because President Trump is winning for the American people. That has been their biggest fear since last year, since he was inaugurated on January 20th of last year. That has been their biggest fear. Not that he was going to bring this country down, that he was going to make it great again. That's what he's doing, and they hate it. That's why they're going crazy, literally going crazy. The media, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, the whole lot of them going crazy because this president is winning just like he told us he was going to do.
It's like every election. The Republicans are racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic. You can't really argue a whole lot with success. And my opinion that all the noise we hear won't matter when people are back to work, out of poverty, off of food stamps, and the country is now prospering, and we're safe and secure.
because facts don't care about their feelings. And I'll tell you this, because I have been going out, you've been sending me out to West Hollywood, to other areas in California, which we think would be so liberal. And what I'm really finding out, Sean, is there are so many people that support this president, and they didn't support him initially, but they're seeing what he's doing to benefit them. They're seeing the economy being turned around.
West Hollywood, California?
Hey, you know what? They want to make money just as much as you and I do. They want to make money. They want to keep their hard-earned money, and they love this president. They don't like what he tweets. They don't like what he says that hurts their little feelings, but they like what he's doing for this country. And at the end of the day, when we come up to midterms, we come up to re-election time, that's what's going to matter, is the results, and this president is getting them.
What about, all right, so the president comes out with this fake news media awards last night, but then you're watching the media, and they're trashing his doctor, the guy that also was the doctor of Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and they're angry because the president's in excellent health. How is anybody to interpret that other than there's nothing this man can do they'll ever like?
They want him to fail, and they want him to be ill, and they want him to die. Let's be honest, that's exactly what they want, and they're so frustrated that he's winning for the American people, that he's healthy.
And he got a 30 out of 30 on the cognitive test.
He's doing wonderfully. You know what we really should do? In the spirit of caring, in the spirit of sharing, we should have that same doctor examine folks like Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters, because they need all the help they can get, Sean.
Can we add Dr. Liberal Joe Scarborough and Dr. Mika? I want to see how well they do on that test.
Oh, I would love to. I think we should share the doctor's expertise with those individuals, because in the spirit of mental health awareness, they need far more help than this president. This president is doing wonderfully. He's, like he says, he's a stable genius. And you know what? I believe it, because look at this country. We're doing great. All of us are doing great, and the Democrats are terrified.
Okay, so you're obviously in the younger generation. Do you see younger people now liking what's happening? Maybe people that are, you know, Winston Churchill, 20 not a liberal, you don't have a heart. 40 and not conservative, you don't have a brain. Do you see a change now?
I think that when these young people are going out and they're getting their first jobs, you know, if they do move out of their parents' basement and